Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast, where every week we hear an amazing story from a serious founder who built a valuable software company and did it without big funding. I'm your host, Greg Head, and this week my guest is Brian Forbes, the CEO and president of BBCS. This is the run your business, do it all software for blood banks here in the United States to manage their back end financials, their donors, the blood processing, and everything in between. Let's say an ERP, enterprise resource planning system of record for blood banks here, which is a unique industry that has modernized very slowly over the years. Brian wasn't the founder of this business. It was his mom who created the business in the 80s, grew it up and ran it as a family business for a long time. And he's been involved in the business and now owns the business and is running it. And you'll hear his story of modernizing in this very complicated, regulated, and industry that he cares about so much. It's a great story with Brian Forbes. Hey, Brian, welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast.
Hey, Greg, great to be here today.
I look forward to talking shop with you. This is the second company we've had this summer that is an old-time family business. Started a long time ago, and, the sons took over and, we're taking it into the modern era. A really exciting story. Where are you this week? Are you in the Seattle area where BBCS is based?
I am in beautiful Lake Tapps, Washington today on what should be an 80-degree day here.
Well, that's the secret, isn't it, of Oregon and Washington. It's rainy and dark in the winter, and then the summers are just so beautiful up there.
Right, and we're a bit of a snow sports family, so we're up in the mountains all winter long and enjoying the sunshine up there. You just got to get above the clouds.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm in Park City, Utah this summer, and I'm a snow sports person, but not this time of year, obviously. It's beautiful. Well, great. Let's just dig in here and talk about Blood Bank Computer Systems, BBCS. Does anybody say Blood Bank Computer Systems these days, or, that's the formal long name? It's BBCS?
Yeah, I think everybody just knows this is BBCS at this point, or even by a product name. Mm-hmm.
That's great. We'll keep it simple there. Tell us about BBCS and what your focus is and who you serve.
Yeah. So BBCS is a company that makes a ERP system for blood banks, regional blood banks across the United States. And so it's a very robust ERP system that has all kinds of components for manufacturing of blood products. And so also has a unique component being that it's a regulated product. We have to go through FDA regulations. Even though we're completely a software business, we still have to adhere to FDA regulations.
You do, not your customers. Yeah, right.
Both of us.
Oh, really?
Yes, we have to. It has to get what's called a 510(k) clearance in order to sell and market our software. And then, so we sell it to blood banks across the United States. It's a pretty niche market. There's less than 100 regional blood banks in the United States. And today, we're about 40 employees. I think we just hired our 40th employee, and we are serving 34, maybe 35 here soon, regional blood banks across the United States, making up about 20% of the U.S. blood supply.
So if I donate blood in Dallas and I go to the website and find a mobile unit and schedule it and do it and the paperwork and the follow-ups, and then presumably they're tracking the blood, with all the barcodes and everything like that. Is that what your software does? It run your business for blood banks?
Yeah, it is really the underpinnings of a blood center, not in the Dallas area yet, but in a lot of regions across the United States. And so, yes, it's doing both the collection of the blood product and really interacting with the donor, but then there's this whole manufacturing piece that sits behind the scenes. You don't just take blood from one donor and then give it to a patient. There's all these steps along the way where you manufacture these individual components, and that's a lot of what our system's doing and generating all those labels that go on the blood product.
So when somebody gets blood in a hospital, that is coded and you know exactly where it came from and it's tracked the whole way.
Yeah, and years ago we went to what's called ISBT, which is an international standard for labeling blood products. So our system is ISBT compliant, which was a whole project in and of itself.
Yeah.
But yes, you can trace in any hospital, pick up any bag of blood and know and trace it all the way back to where it was collected, even the donor that it was collected from. And our system is managing that as a system of record.
So you have a few products that are almost suites amongst themselves, multifunctional kinds of thing. Is there anything in a blood bank, a regional blood bank? I don't know if hospitals or universities get into this as well, but is there anything you don't help a blood bank manage on the back end?
Well, we very much are a system of record. We very much are the central nervous system of these various blood banks that we get to work with. There's times where we had to kind of narrow our focus to make some sort
Ah,
of technological leap, and
there
then,
you go.
eventually kind of pick that back up and roll it back into the system.
Well, we'll talk about that. An old business has made technology leaps
Yes.
to modernize, and you are a major part of that. Is there any funding in the business? Have you raised any funding?
No, we've been a bootstrap business for our 40 plus years. We really have just reinvested profits over and over and over again. Luckily, there's been profits since the beginning, and
Yeah,
we've been able to do that.
that's awesome. And is it your mom that started this business way back when, or in the family business, or how did that start?
Right. So it started with a conversation at a Rotary meeting between two gentlemen, and what it ended up being is one of the gentlemen was the CEO of a blood center, the other one had a consulting business, and they got to talking and said, "Hey, can you go out and do a little search for us?" But, this is pre-internet days; you couldn't just Google
Yeah.
blood bank systems. So, can you go search and see if there's a ERP type package for our blood center? And then the people involved went out and searched and said, "Well, wait a minute, there's not really anything here for you." And then kind of spun out this question: should we build it for you?
Mm.
And my mom got hired in as one of the first developers on the
Ah,
project
there
when
you
it was
go.
decided.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
she spun that out into its own business and continued to grow it and went from, humble beginnings of one little blood center in the Pacific Northwest to, now 20% of the US blood supply.
In those days, that was computers taking us all from paper onto a computer system. Everything was done with paper forms and all of that before then.
Right, exactly. We needed to be, digital so we could trace all this stuff. So we knew who was getting what blood. It was very critical. And then making sure that we didn't, that blood centers didn't over collect from any one given person. Yeah.
Ah. All that stuff that has to be managed. Did it start out in the beginning years like, more on one side, tracking the blood, and managing that, or, managing a donor center, staffing and donors and reminders and things? Like, where did that start in the beginning?
Yeah, it really started in both the accounting side of things because there is
Ah,
dollars and cents because the blood centers sell their product to the hospital, and in the
yeah.
recruiting of blood donors. That was a big part is you got to get these people
Okay.
to come in and, and volunteer to get stuck in the arm. And so that is important. So anyways, that's where it started and then just grew from there.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. And are you're not in outside of the United States right now?
At the moment, no. We do all our work in the United States. We've had a couple of research projects and things that we've contributed to overseas, but nothing that's currently going on.
Okay, great. Well, imagine that still growing and growing. Is it a growing business now and
Very much.
picking up steam? How big is it in revenue? If you can
Yeah,
get
so
us in the
so, we're
neighborhood.
hovering around that 10 million ARR mark,
Yeah.
and, we are growing, and we've, been continually investing into the product, and we've done a complete, remodel, if you will, of the system, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, but,
Yeah.
that has certainly led to growth, but very steady growth over the years. Again, there's less than 100 regional blood banks in the United States. There's just not a huge market to go after.
Well, there's a lot of niche markets that are big niches,
Right.
right? Things you've never heard of, the bouncy house rental business, right? There's 3 or 4 companies
Right.
that are more than $10 million. That's, we wouldn't even think of that, but it's quite large. But there's literally 100 there. So, you couldn't even imagine raising funding because what are you going to do? Double? And,
Right.
it would be like a dominant market share.
Well, and I think that also people underestimate the size of these blood centers. Yes, they're every one of our customers is a nonprofit, but these are 50 million to 150, $200 million businesses that we're now the central nervous
Core
system for.
system.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm sure there's something about pricing in there too that, you've evolved through the years. It is one of the, let's say, private equity growth equity levers when they buy the core system of record that can't be taken out, to raise prices and, grow a little bit every year through selling more stuff and a little price raise and all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about your journey with that. So did you grow up in this business?
Well,
Your
yeah, actually,
mom was an entrepreneur,
right.
I guess. Which is that what you called her back in the day? We
Well,
probably didn't say software founder. Probably wasn't that cool, but
yeah.
I don't know.
Certainly. And I come from a family of a long line of entrepreneurs too. So it's always kind of in the conversations around the dinner table, in the conversations at Christmas or
It's in your blood, so to speak.
very
We'll
much.
go there.
And one side of my family, we have a 140-year-old agricultural box company that's 6 generations, still private, no funding, completely bootstrapped. So, that's kind of what's always been around. And so as mom took on this project and got involved in BBCS, yeah, very much that was around the dinner table. It was something that, there was clients that were coming over for dinner and I'd get to know them. And then when I got into the business, they were still there. And there were people that, oh, I remember you when you were, 6, 8 years old. Right. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, very much been kind of indoctrinated into this particular industry.
And did you know that was not typical, in the world to, be talking shop and the business and, kids meeting the clients,
No, I
wasn't
don't.
a 9 to 5 job, and
Right. No, I that's just all I knew. That's just what our family did was entrepreneurial and business.
yeah.
Yeah.
And was this, let's say, a small business through these years? Was it a steady, larger software business?
What
Has
it
it been
was
about the same size for all
No,
these
it was
years? Or
very
yeah.
much smaller. I mean, when mom took over the
Mm,
business and kind of spun it out, it was 2, 3 employees. It was very small
ah,
and grew
yeah,
from there. So it didn't no, this was very humble beginnings and
yeah.
the challenges got different over the years as growth happened. We had to deal with things like Y2K and FDA, things, and these were all big topics in our household. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So Y2K was year 2000 back in the day when all those legacy old
Right.
systems, was this kind of RPG code and mini computer mainframe type stuff or what?
Right. We were, and so that was a big deal is that we were actually we were on an IBM platform at that time and it was all RPG code, but we were Y2K compliant when a lot of the people that
Yeah.
were out there weren't. And so that sent a lot of customers our way through that whole period. Yeah.
Wow. One of the milestones of software.
Right.
Uh, that was when everybody was worried when the clock went
Right.
from 1999 to 2000 that the old systems wouldn't work. They weren't programmed for it, and our airlines would break down, and blood banks would break down, and so forth.
Yeah.
Didn't really materialize, but it was a huge instigation in the .com era.
It sure
But for
helped us
the
grow
old
a
kind
bit.
of software.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, how did this evolve? Yourself getting into the business? Do you own the business now? You're CEO and
I I
president?
I am CEO and I do own it at this point.
Yeah.
That was a transition that we made in April of 2020. It's almost like mom
Wow.
saw something coming that might be a big deal right around that time frame,
Yeah,
maybe a
yeah,
worldwide pandemic. I don't know, but
yeah.
that was when I took over leadership of the business and got to really start to enact my vision on what I wanted to do. But it wasn't always the plan. In fact, if we
Oh,
go back all the way up to what I intended to do, I always knew I was going to be in business. I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know it was
yeah.
going to be inside of this business.
Hmm.
And, growing up around people that are on computers constantly programming and doing this, I mean, that was my household and that wasn't me particularly. I was kind of turned off to the whole idea. In fact, when I went to college, I didn't even want to take a computer with me. I was like, no, I don't need this.
Yeah, where that was at.
Ironically, I left with an IT degree. Go figure, right? And so
Yeah.
there was something in my blood there, but and didn't even go to work for BBCS right out of college. In fact, I went and kind of chased a bit of a dream and went and worked out in Colorado and went to work for Keystone Ski Resort as a marketing manager and was in charge of their whole online marketing presence and did a couple of years of that, which was great. But that wasn't, again, it wasn't always the plan to come back to BBCS. But when I did, you fall in love with it. You fall in love with the people, the business, the mission, all of that, and you just want to keep going.
So did you have various roles around the company when you came back?
Yeah.
Uh, do this, take over marketing, I don't know what. this kind of thing?
Yeah, I originally came in as a salesperson. And so
Mhm.
I was going to come in as sales. I think I had sales and marketing as a title, although we didn't do much in marketing at that point. And this was in 2007. And we all know what happened over the next couple of years, which was the housing crisis, the economy tanks. And well, these are very conservative businesses we're trying to sell into. And, lots of at bats, lots of opportunities to go to demonstrate the software. And I got to learn the software through that whole process. But wasn't converting anything to sales. I mean, just no after no after no after no for 2
Mm,
years is what I heard. And
mm,
all of that really sharpening, my skills as a salesperson, but still not breaking through. But listening, a lot of listening,
yeah,
a lot of hard lessons. Oh, if it just had this, or if it just did this, it would be compelling enough to make this massive migration from whatever their legacy system was to ours. So, that's where I
yeah,
started. And then when the sales really was pretty evident that we weren't going to get anything for a while. And now I had all this knowledge of what the customer wanted, real good voice of the customer. It was time to go, okay, well, we still had profits, we still had revenue, we still were doing fine as a business. We just weren't growing. And so it was time to reinvest. And that's where I got really involved into the R&D side of our business and took over the
yeah.
leadership of R&D and tried to, you know, work these things that I had heard into the system. Yeah.
Is the blood bank industry, is that you would think it'd be kind of recession-proof. People give blood and make money, I guess, giving blood sometimes through thick and thin, but did it just slow down the decision process for these businesses that they didn't know where, what was gonna come out on the other side?
That's it precisely, right?
Yeah.
The businesses were doing fine. They just weren't gonna make any big changes at that period of
Ah,
time. Yeah.
yeah. And that whole ERP, enterprise resource planning, they run your business from the front end to the making money and taking cash and accounting for it and everything. Those are really hard to switch, and they're really sticky as a result. But how long does it take for a new customer that says, "We'll get rid of our old one we've been using for years"? It's not like there's a new blood bank probably starting from scratch, but how long does it take to do a transition, the migration and training and all of that to get everybody up on a new system? You can imagine everybody taking blood and donor management, everything, a little frustrated when there's a change in the old system.
These are big projects. These projects involve every department of a give it $100 million business,
Oh my
and
goodness.
they can't shut down. You can't stop collecting blood, right?
Right.
So then layer on the fact that it's highly regulated. Right? The FDA is involved in this. We have to do proper validation and prove that these systems work the way that they're intended to, the way that the SOPs, the standard operating procedures are written,
Yeah.
people are properly trained. These are big projects. And then layer on the fact that you can't have any data lost between the legacy system and the new system.
Right. The
So
whole switch. Yeah.
yep. So you have to in a regulated system manage transitioning that data from the legacy to the new, which in and of itself is a massive project. So these projects, in the perfect world, we get it done in 12 months. Early on in my career, in fact, I was an implementation manager, as we
Yeah.
called it, and I
Right.
got the opportunity to do these different roles. And 12 months was what we were targeting. They wouldn't always hit 12 months. There'd be lots of things can happen in both our business and the persons we're working with over those 12 months that could take key resources away for a period of time, or just
Mm.
setbacks, or they're just changing business practices and you got to kind of keep up with those. So these are massive projects. Now we have gotten a lot better at it over the years, and really pride ourselves on implementation and really the data conversion. That's what we found
Yeah.
was the thing that really separates us from some of the competition is that we're really good at the data conversion. We do it all in house, and we take it very seriously.
Do you charge for the implementation services, which is typical in these kind of big migrations?
Yeah, that's changed over the years. One of the big initiatives that I had was I took over leadership and ownership of this business was really to usher in an era of SaaS, right, and
Yeah.
understanding what software as a service was and the pricing models, and really transition this legacy business into that. So how we did it in the past versus how we do it now is a little different. If we're talking about now, it's really there's a lot of custom programming that goes into the data conversion. And sure, people, do get charged or pay for that. And then it's really just being a service partner to them through that. So we have a whole tried and true process that we go through. What really, in fact, what funny story is that it was it was my internship project in college. I came in and had an opportunity to help with, I had just taken some project management classes and felt really comfortable about that. And I came in and programmed up in an Access database, a whole project management tool to do our implementations and really do the work breakdown structure and understand each one of the tasks and the dependencies and relationships. So, luckily we've moved way past that probably terribly programmed Access database to something much more robust. But the underpinnings of a tried and true work breakdown structure, traditional project management project is there.
And is it a recurring revenue, SaaS, pay annually or multi-year or whatever kind of business now with cloud type software? Or
Yeah.
have you made the transition on both sides as most legacy businesses have done?
Yeah, we've always been a business that had recurring revenue. So we've always
Okay.
been very good at understanding what our revenue is going to be. Even, January 1st, I can pretty well guess what my annual revenue is going to be. Unless,
Yeah.
something, we get a new customer usually because there's no real churn in this business. So it's the only
Yeah.
thing that's going to go is we're going to get a new customer. So that's really helpful for planning if you know what your revenue is
Yeah.
going to be. We've always been that way. We have, as I've kind of ushered in SaaS, I've gotten out of the kind of prepayment kind of world and done more of the routine quarterly payments is how we do it,
Okay.
where folks they're paying and they're doing it based on the amount of blood that they collect. So that's how we're
Oh,
metering it.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And but do you also have modules, right? Sell these products and these modules and so forth, but all of that has a variable according to how much blood they're processing?
Yeah. Again, with the kind of legacy products that we had, as those
Yeah.
matured, they got more and more modules. So that was a system we called ABO Suite, which was very
Mhm.
modularized. And just like you said, you can pick up various modules, and there'd be charges and such for it. When we made the big investment and brought out what we call For Life Biologics platform, this is relatively new, so it hasn't matured to a point where there's a bunch of modules yet.
Ah, okay.
So that's kind of where we're at in that process. We're starting to layer on some things now, but I'm really seeing it as, you know, it's a platform. Folks are investing in it and we're investing in it. So most of that stuff is going to become available to them. Yeah.
Right. So what did the product look like 5 or 10 years ago? Was it a Windows interface and some kind of ancient backend database kind of thing? And now it's a little bit different.
Yeah,
What
very
was
much
life
so.
like before the modernization?
Yeah. So the system when I inherited it was a IBM mini mainframe
Yeah.
solution, green screen user interface, DB2
Right.
database, RPG business logic
Yeah.
system, and running on the IBM OS platform. So you had to have
Wow.
one of these IBM systems in order to be able to
Hardware
install it.
systems. Yeah.
And so that's the
Yeah.
first couple of years as I'm hearing no and no and no, where I'm trying to present a green screen application, a very functional green screen. It
Yeah.
was really
Right.
good. In
That
fact,
was life
I
for
remember
a long time in the computer industry.
it
Yeah.
was indeed, and you can still see it around places and these things. But I remember being at a sales demo years ago in that era, and the demo we were on site, and it went really well. But it was a little tiny kind of hospital blood bank, and it went really well, and the people were really excited about it. And we were going to have a follow up call, and now you have the
Yeah.
bigger decision makers on the call, and so we had to send some screens ahead of time because we didn't even have really WebEx working or anything like that at that time. So we sent some screens over, and you can hear them shuffling the paper because they printed these things off. And you can hear the gal that I had met with talk to the decision maker and say, "I know it's ugly, but it works." And I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah.
And remember, I just came from,
There's a
a
headline.
marketing powerhouse in Vail
Yeah.
Resorts, right? My job there was to convince people to pack up their family, get on a plane, fly to Denver, drive an hour past 3 other ski resorts and show up at mine. Like, we were really good at marketing, and now I'm sitting in a meeting and hearing people call it ugly, and oh, that just changed everything. So, from there, it was, well, what am I going to do about this? And that's right about the era that I became in charge of R&D. And I was like, okay, we got to do something about this. I'm not selling a green screen any longer. So we had a couple different options, and I got some clients involved. And what we did is we found an emulation software that we could layer over our green
Yeah.
screens. And so it would be a browser-based solution on that. And so that's what we implemented. That didn't take that long. That was only 6 months or so to really implement that. And all of a sudden now we're in a browser. It's still real basic, but it's in a browser. It doesn't look like a green screen. People can't connect this to a green screen. You just wouldn't think, hey, that looks like a green screen. It looks like a web application. And in that era, we had to bring on a couple new modules. There was also this challenge that we'd been facing. We have this unique kind of place where we have to operate. These mobile buses that they're doing blood collection on go all over the place. And so you have capabilities where, especially 10 years ago, they weren't online. And then, cellular connections got better. And, nowadays you got Starlink and these other things that can solve those problems. But even today, there's still rural areas they're doing blood drives. So you have to have an ability to kind of take a piece of your system, go offline and come back online and sync everything up.
Sync it up. The old days, that was CRM in the old days.
Right.
Oh,
right.
I'm sorry to hear that, Brian, the old synchronization problem.
Yep. And so I had to fight it. And we wanted to do more and more on these mobile blood drives. So not only are you taking one user offline, you're building an offline network. You might be in the basement of some church. You might be in a high school gymnasium. You might be in a mobile bus out in some rural area. But it's not just one computer. It's a whole network of computers out there to do the work that you need to do. And now you got to centralize that and bring it back. And so we wrote a whole program to do that. We called it ABO Wheels, and wheels on the bus, kind of wheels, that was the idea there. And then we did really well with that, but we wrote it in Java. And so that was the application that the technology that we used. And we did a MySQL database that things synced back and forth to, but it had to talk and interact because everything went back into the IBM.
Oh my gosh.
Very challenging system to build. And actually it did really well. People love it. It's all over the country right now. Yeah.
So you had this steady revenue and increase when you got a new customer, but you had to squeeze in all this product updating, retooling, new modules, all this stuff. Was that just a tight squeeze to fund all this R&D? This is a really challenging problem for any bootstrap company that's around long enough. They have to do some kind of rewriting, right? Re-architecting. The new coders want to start from scratch and all that kind of stuff. But
indeed they do.
How did you guys, let's just talk about the business side. Did you just pace yourself what you could afford every year and get through it? And
that's exactly it. That's what we had on our side was steady revenues and profit and time.
Yeah.
And we had to leverage all three of those to make it happen. Right. And so things just took time. And luckily, and again, in a regulated space that we work in, people aren't in a hurry to make a lot of changes. So I had time on my side. So this wasn't things that happened overnight. These are multi-year projects to do these types of things. And then, what we found is that even when like ABO Suite, we printed off literal CDs, right, and sent these to these people. And then you got to get it scheduled for them to do the upgrade or do the implementation. So it was like, even when I finished stuff, it was still another 6, 8 months, year, 2 years, whatever, until the customer actually implemented it and did it. So
on their servers, right? Back
on
then.
their servers. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. Wow.
So upgrades are really challenging. And so, we weren't continuous deployment. Yeah, right. We were doing, 1 release a year, 2 releases a year because people it was really challenging for them to implement it themselves and upgrade.
Wow. And did you have new developers? I'm sure you have a stable, coding team that's been around a long time and can speak all the different languages that you speak on the back end. But did the new coders always want to come in and rewrite it? Did you eventually start from scratch, or did you move pieces one by one? Something like that?
Yeah. So the story goes that, I talked about this ABO Wheels product, and it was really important to us. And again, having that network effect that you had to take non-technical people that had to break down the system, pack it up into a van, take it to a church, set it up, right? This is challenging. And at that time, it was a thick client that they had to load on various tablets. You might have 10, 15 devices here, various tablets or laptops or what have you that all had to talk to each other. So very thick technological footprint. So what over the years, I was getting frustrated that people weren't upgrading. I can't innovate if they won't upgrade, right? And so the challenge kept coming back to it's so hard to touch all this technology. Again, $100 million facility probably has 60 blood drives going on one day. This is thousands of pieces of equipment that need to be updated.
Yeah.
They don't want to go touch all of them.
Yeah.
So what I decided to do at that point was I was like, okay, well, we already have Wheels. The back end's in Java. What am I going to do about this? So I wanted a browser front end because I was using just a Java client on each one of the devices.
Yeah.
So I set off to build what we called Wheels Web, which was the idea that we would take all of our business logic that we had, but make it a browser based so that all the other peripherals, so you only had to load it on one device per blood drive, and then you could then use the browser to access it. And so that's what we started to build. And I had to bring on some people. We weren't doing web development, right? So I had to to either level up some of the folks that I had or bring on additional people. And we got going on that project, and it went pretty well. And really happy with what that was. And hindsight being what it was, I should have released it. But I had this idea that, well, what if we just keep going? Why do we need to stop at the blood drive piece? Let's just convert it all to web. Well, little did I know that was going to be a 8-figure decision and cost the next 4.5 years of my life.
Yeah, right.
But we did. And so we
was that kind of a rewrite, like fresh
completely.
Code, fresh tracks, the whole thing?
The whole thing, ground up, every line of code, start over. We did that and started in 2020, finished in late 24. So all modern technology, all on AWS, completely new database, everything. An entirely new system leveraging our 40 plus years of knowledge. So again, I was the incumbent in that case. So I'm trying to cannibalize my own system, right? There is no MVP you're going to release at that point. Once you get going, you got to go, and you have nothing until you have everything. And that's what it cost me, 65,000 hours of programming time to get to my quote unquote MVP.
This podcast is sponsored by my friends at Cypress Growth Capital. At some point in your growth, you'll know you could grow faster with some outside funding, but selling a part of your company to VCs would change your whole game. And we know that's the most expensive growth capital on the planet. That's why so many practical SaaS founders I know have partnered with Cypress Growth Capital when they hit that predictable growth inflection point. For 15 years, Cypress has provided non-dilutive growth funding to bootstrap SaaS founders, including 6 successful founders I've interviewed here on this podcast. Cypress provides enough patient capital for you to invest in your growth without giving up any of your precious equity. They leverage their entrepreneurial and operational experience to provide savvy strategic guidance to help you grow efficiently and build your valuable software company faster. Go to cypressgrowthcapital.com/practical to learn more and set up a time with Cliff Centel to see if there's a fit. Now back to our program. Right. The beginning of and it's a big system. And, if you have to decide when you get nearer to crossing the bridge, is there enough to get it running, even though it's not complete, feature complete, and the big dreams, the new stuff, the old stuff, all those legacy features and everything else.
Yep.
I've been through that. It took 4 years of my life to convert an old 90s Windows product into a modern Windows product back in the early 2000s, pre-cloud and everything. And it was really painful for everyone involved. And those were when you were sending out CDs or downloading and people had to upgrade and update manually themselves. Modern SaaS founders and employees really don't know the old days of your customers had to update the stuff themselves from a CD or a disc or a download or something like that. If they didn't do it, you had to ask everybody, what version are you on?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
All that stuff.
And that's most of the world we're living in today because we haven't had everybody upgrade. So we won't.
How far along in this conversion are you with your customers now? I'm sure that's a one-by-one project as well.
We have one customer live.
Okay.
So our first customer went live in October of 24, and they were a pilot organization that worked with us really closely. Now we have opened up the floodgates now. So we have, I say about a third of our customers, either new or upgrades that are happening right now. So we're very busy on our implementation client success group.
And is that like a remigrate everybody?
Yeah, I got to remigrate everybody. And data conversions and the whole bit. Now it's a little bit easier doing a data conversion from my own system to my own system.
Yes, right, yeah.
So, but yeah, and there's commonalities amongst the system, but we made it a lot there's some pretty cool, interesting stuff in this new version that I'm
Okay,
excited
so
about.
we're getting you on the early side of this conversion. Uh, it's one of the later businesses in, to make the SaaS conversion technology, and you guys were already there with the business model there. How long do you think it's going to take before effectively most of your customers are on the new system and you could start to do that, start to, deprecate, as we say, and the old systems and slow down the old development. You got two platforms to work on.
Right. So we gave a 3-year notice already. I said, "Look, you got
Okay.
3 years to upgrade. There's benefits to them, there's benefits to us to make it happen, and we're working very closely with our customers to do the upgrade." So it's the first time we've
And are there
ever.
some that say, "Heck no, we don't wanna do it, and we'll stay on this forever," or
No.
no?
No, I don't
Okay.
I haven't come across that yet. There's some unique challenges amongst some of our customers, like working with, National Institute of Health is one of our customers. Well, they have
Yeah.
certain government regulations to be a cloud-based system, so I gotta deal with
Uh-huh.
with FedRAMP and some of these other things. So, there's some challenges that we have to overcome that might, be stumbling blocks for some, but, yeah, we're doing
And
it.
are
We're in it.
you at feature parity with the old system on the new system yet, or how are you pretty close?
We were almost feature parity when we went live in October. We're definitely feature parity now, and we've pushed way beyond that. So, you
Oh, great.
yeah, we
Excellent.
we we just continued because we're seeing a lot of success right now, so there's more
Mm.
customers coming in, and I'm pouring that money right back into the system because
Okay.
at the end of
You're
the day,
growing.
I'm a builder. I like I have I get great joy out of building these features that I've wanted to, and I just want a system that I'm proud of, something I wanna use. So, I just keep pouring stuff into it, and I'm really excited about some of the features that are coming out and how they're we are attracting a bit of a larger customer now, and,
Okay.
so they have different unique needs that we need to overcome, or some of the ways that we had dealt with things in the past just don't scale out the way that you'd want them to for a larger entity. So a lot of new features, and we ushered in continuous deployment into the new version, something that just doesn't even exist in our marketplace. And so we've released almost every week since we went live in October. It's
Oh,
just
welcome
changed
to the
everything.
modern world. Does it feel good, Brian, to
Feels
be on the other side?
amazing. I get an opportunity.
Years and years and years of, thinking about the future, and
Right.
now here you are.
Right. I've gotten opportunities to speak at different, industry events or my own events, et cetera, and I just keep calling it my superpower. I have this ability, it just feels like that right now, that I can change things, and I can enact
Oh.
change. It feels so good. Yeah, something I've
So
wanted.
you're a builder, right? Do you love the whole system of this and taking one system to another? Not everybody likes all that. These are really deep systems. Are you a sales guy as well? Do you need to be in this industry, this, small and relationship oriented industry? I wonder how you sell to keep growing to make your customer funding.
Yeah. I don't see myself as a salesperson. I really don't. Again, maybe it's just because I've grown up around, again, back to having these customers at my dinner table as a kid. That stuff matters, and so I think that I see myself as a relationship builder, as a
Yeah.
partner. The other thing about this industry, that we serve, the blood industry, the same people they don't move, right? These are nonprofits. These people, they're mission based, that are
Regional.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're wonderful people I get to work with, and so no, I really just try to be my authentic self. I try to be very genuine with the people. I try to listen to their problems and offer solutions, and that's what drives me. It really is. It's sales will follow if you just do those things.
Do you envision the business, having a new, let's say, a rebirth and growth spurt as you sell to new customers and have a modern, magical product to sell? Do you think the business is going to accelerate and you'll take over market share, or do you imagine more continuous, steady growth with a more efficient platform?
Oh, I think I'm in it right now. I think
Okay.
I'm trying to keep up with the market
Oh,
that's
good.
coming to me right now, which is a great position to be in, but it's presented all kinds of challenges. One of the probably smart decisions, I would assume smart decisions I made over the last couple of years is that, when I took over the business, I inherited a leadership team that we had in
Uh huh.
place, and I largely, most of those people are still here. They're great people. I got a great team around me. But what I did as we grew is I really looked to build an executive team. And I
Hmm.
did that right in, mid 24 and worked on building this executive team, brought in a VP of technology again, so I didn't have to carry the torch as the
Okay,
technological
you
leader in
were
our
you were
business.
carrying that. Yeah.
Yep. And I promoted somebody into a VP of business development, somebody that's been with me for a long, long time, to really continue to sell the product and be out there to answer questions and do demos and these types of things. And then I brought in a VP of client success. And in that team, I really was able to grow and to, not have to carry all the burden of all these different jobs and really allow us to scale out. So that's worked well. I've had to learn a lot of lessons. I mean, I don't even know that I fully grasped.
Yeah, your role changes substantially when you're the stop being the do-it-all person.
Right. Right. Indeed,
Yeah.
it did. And I had to learn some things. I brought in some talented people that brought skills with them, and I
I
and
bet.
and I had to catch up in some cases. Also, I brought on a fractional CFO, which was critically important for us to get financial visibility into the business, and that's just been worth its weight in gold. Yeah.
Is that Ben who connected us here?
That is
Okay.
Ben, and Ben's been
Yeah.
wonderful. I really wanted to find, as I was trying to go through my transition to SaaS, I needed somebody that understood SaaS. I was talking to various financial people, and they just didn't get it. And Ben has got quite the background in SaaS CFO role, so he's just been wonderful for me.
Yeah, it's Ben Murray, who is the SaaS CFO
Indeed,
and
he
has
is.
tons of content and helps out great companies that are getting through it. So were you scrappy in the financial side? Now you're maturing, more SaaS-like. It's not as cash-based in the SaaS world. You got to turn your business on the side for recurring revenue
Right.
and so forth. But are you a modern SaaS metrics and financial company now?
Very much so. Ben's done a tremendous job of helping us understand benchmarks, understand what are the key drivers that we should look
Okay.
for in a SaaS business, and has totally redone all of our financial reporting. Yeah,
Oh my gosh,
it's been amazing. I
great.
love it.
And you're growing again. Can you keep up with I don't know, the requests for migrations? And do you have a little kind of investment bubble you've got to get through to get everybody converted? Would you ever consider raising some debt? There's a lot of debt providers out there would say, here's a couple million you could pay us back because you know it's going to work and you know you're going to have steady customers and profits on
Yeah.
the other side. You ever consider that one?
Well, to answer your first question about the customer migrations and for the
Okay.
first time ever, we have a bit of a backlog. We actually have folks that are signed up to start in the future. And again, where the industry's fairly patient, so that works,
Yeah.
at
Uh-huh.
least for a while. So, that's an interesting new challenge that we're up against, which is that, we're kind of betting on particular projects to finish so that we can start the next one. But
Yeah.
but so far that's gone quite well. So that's kind of where we're
Okay.
at. As far as raising money, I'm sure like many of the other folks in my seat, I just get inundated with calls and text messages
Of
and
course.
emails and people stopping by my house and all these other wonderful things
Yes. Right. To give you
to
offers.
give me
Right. I'm sure.
offers. And certainly you think about that when you're in my seat. You see
Hmm.
the big numbers, and I started to pursue some of that, but it's just not in my DNA to do that.
There you go.
It's just not. Growing up around, again, a 6th-generation, 140-year-old business that is still private. I don't think that I could do it. I think that
Yeah.
I'm very patient. I have a profitable business. I live a very great lifestyle. I'm raising 3 wonderful boys, and I want to spend time with them and as well as grow this business, and I don't need it.
So pretty much every day somebody's reaching out to you. And have you ever like had conversations and got there and scratched your head and said, does this
Well,
is
yeah.
this interesting or whatever? The bigger this goes, and the more you get to the other side of your modern SaaS and cloud conversion, the more valuable the business is going to be, and the more you got to turn down. But if you ever, did you ever get an offer and you
Oh, yeah.
tried on?
I've
Yeah.
seen it.
Okay.
I've seen offers, I've seen term sheets. They're very, very flattering. It feels awesome to get that kind of validation.
Yeah,
That
that's
somebody
right. There
puts
you go.
value on your
Yes.
business, that's really
Yeah.
flattering, and it's fun to look at the numbers, but it's again, there's always hair on these things. There's always terms that you're just like, "Ooh, no, gosh, no, not happening."
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's that.
Yeah, and that offer, that price, that number that looks so simple is just one of the terms,
Right.
right? You don't even know what the rest of the, you know
Right. And,
The dose is.
and I think going through the buyout, right, because I had to buy this business for my mom. And
Yeah, let's talk about that.
in going through that process, I learned very quickly to look at the terms because we had attorneys involved and we had all proper documentation and we negotiated our way through it. And, so I had a really good lesson in that before I've ever seen a term sheet from a potential investor. Yeah.
So was this kind of a buyout, which is, we'll buy you and pay you back over time with
Yep.
profits, kind of
That's
that kind
exactly
of
what
thing?
it was. And so
Okay.
it didn't start out that way. At the beginning, there was this, okay, well, I'm going to buy the stock from her, and was looking down the road of SBA funding and was going to go that
Mhm.
route. And that's a pretty good program for folks
Yeah.
to look into it. But, we got to some of it where we're like, okay, well, we're going to do half with SBA and she's going to carry the note on the other half. And then
Okay.
we couldn't get that quite worked out to where everybody felt like they were the priority, if you will. And
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
at the last moment, it was, mom was like, "Hey, I'm just gonna carry it all." And I got, there's interest and it's real and I have to pay it. And it was a very, I think a fair number
There you go.
that I'm paying for this business. And so I write her a check every month. Yeah.
So you do have some debt to make, for the buyout. You don't
Right.
wanna pile any more on that here. Have you been able to change pricing of your previous generation product or the new product to help make this, growth and revenue and profits move a little faster?
Yeah. So we have one, I had to really rethink pricing as we went into a SaaS model because there's not a
Yeah.
big, large upfront purchase price for this software any longer, which
Right.
had been in the
Yeah.
past. I also had to respect my legacy customers that did make that purchase price way back when, right? So, you kind of have to balance all these different things. So, yes, pricing has been, as I've kind of been able to push off different parts of what I've been doing over the years, pricing seems to continue to land squarely on my plate.
I bet.
And so
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of my time over the last couple of years working about on pricing for various things that we do. So one of the other things that's unique maybe about our industry is that there is a national group purchasing organization. And
Oh, interesting.
yeah, it's interesting because you got to think about it. In our industry, there's about 16, 17 million blood donations that happen a year. Well, about 40% of them happen with the Red Cross. So the Red Cross is
Ah.
way bigger than any of these regional blood centers. And so you can imagine that they have purchasing power, which can then in turn drive their costs down, which then drive their prices down for these blood products. So you have these other smaller entities, even at $100 million or $50
There you
million
go.
or whatever, that can't compete on price because they can't get the purchasing power. So what happened? They put together a group purchasing organization inside the blood centers, outside the industry for all these regional blood centers to be a member of. And that co-op, if you will, that group purchasing organization, we have a contract with them. So we are the
Ah.
provider to them. We're the only provider of this type of software to
Ah.
them. So we get to negotiate our pricing to most of the industry one time
Yeah.
and build in
Wow,
escalators
that's
and
really
these types
different,
of
Brian.
things.
Yeah.
It's very unique and
Interesting.
different. And again, it's back to that partnership. We when something is a
It's almost
challenge.
like a trade agreement negotiation. We're hearing a lot about that this year, of
Yeah,
course.
exactly.
You get to the table and everybody's postured and you have a little leverage and,
Yeah.
all that. So
So
interesting.
so we went through it once, I think about 8, 9 years ago when we started this relationship, and then when I brought on For Life Biologics platform, I went back to the table, and we have a new contract with them for that. So there was opportunities to talk about pricing and to make sure that we're going to stick around. At the end of the day, they need us, and we need
Yes,
them.
right.
It's a very symbiotic relationship. So
Yes.
them driving the price down that makes the product worse is not in their best interest either.
Gosh, what a long-term view on both sides there, right?
Mhm.
And I can imagine they wouldn't be that interested in private equity taking over your business and
No, not at all.
whatever, trying to strong arm them or do something in any of that kind of, any of their playbook probably wouldn't work, generally speaking, on
No.
this.
No, again,
Yeah,
that just does not work in this industry, and I don't know, maybe I'm
interesting.
the perfect person to be sitting in this seat because of the way that I see it with longevity.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so how do you get new customers? Do they outside of this, co-op,
Yeah.
do you find new customers and
Right.
sell them, or how do you sell new customers?
Well, we're going to be at all the industry events, and there's
Okay,
various
there you
trade
go.
shows that
Right.
we're going to be set up at, and we're going to do these types of things. And so that does. I mean, there's people outside of this co-op that we interact with
Yeah,
and
there we
meet,
go.
and
Yeah.
what we're seeing is that more of the around the globe, they're maturing and starting to kind of catch up to what the US is doing. So I think that there is
Ah,
opportunities to kind of rinse and
okay.
repeat the actions that we've done so successfully here in the United States overseas.
Okay, but you got a lot of work, meat on the bone to go, convert your existing customers and sell your new customers here. I mean, is this like a pretty clear 3 or 4-year march for you and your company and your industry here, to get through all of this? You kinda see that in your sights?
I really do. We're just going to keep doing what we do. We're a vertically integrated SaaS business that serves this very niche market. We just want to do it on a bigger scale and bigger stage. So we
Yeah.
have a lot of work ahead of us. We have now done all of the underpinnings that we need in for life, and very much just going to keep iterating and making it better and better and better each and every week.
You're talking about this as a long-term kinda business. Do you see this as a generational business? Maybe one of your sons will take over, or, that it'll go on for a long time as this stable entity?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if my kids are going to see it the same way. That'll be for them to decide. But I got three boys that are coming up, and various ages. So the chances are one of them's going
With
to be
entrepreneurial, conversations at the dinner table?
all
Yeah.
day, all the time, all the time. My
Uh-huh.
my 4-year-old was explaining to me about how I go to work so I can make money so that I can buy him his new Switch too. So I mean, he understands the process
Yeah,
and how it all works.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very much a conversation in our household. Now, there's no pressure, and I think one of the things that I did maybe be unique in a family business is I didn't come out of college and go right to the family business. I
Oh, there you
went to
go.
go work for another bigger entity. I got to work with some just legendary people. I had just a great exposure to lots of different things about how businesses operate, and that's afforded me so much confidence. I think more than anything, as I've come into the business, that hey, I know how this works, and hey, if this doesn't work out, I can go do something else. At least early on. Now I'm a little married to this, but it gave me a lot of confidence, and so that's something I've talked to my kids about. Is that look, you don't want to come. I don't want you to come into this business. I want you to go get experience that you can bring back to this business when you're ready. And so, yeah, I think that's the way I see it. Is really hoping that I can put them out into the world, that they can go do wonderful things, and they get excited to come back and bring that skill set
Like you
inside.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope so.
That's it. So, you're making this transition to, for with your clients to the modern platform, and, a modern, organized business, SaaS metrics, and a modern leadership team, and so forth. At the same time that AI is starting to transform what happens inside software businesses, the products, and their perceptions out there. Now, your slow-moving customers are probably not demanding the latest and greatest cool stuff, but how is AI showing up in your business these days?
Yeah. First, I would say that there's very much different flavors of customers. Some of my customers are very sophisticated, and especially some of the
Oh,
ones I'm
okay.
getting to work with now, because they
Yes.
are such larger entities that have rolled up various other blood centers, just grown naturally, whatever it may be.
Multi-hundred million dollar
Exactly. These
businesses, really.
people are
Okay.
thinking AI, and I don't want to sell them
Okay.
short. And so, what does it mean to BBCS? Well, first of all, I'm reading everything I can read about AI and
Yeah, of
trying to
course.
understand it and get familiar with some of the tools and this type of thing, just for my own knowledge. And I very much have pushed my team here to come up with some strategies about what does it mean to our business. And our first approach was, okay, well, in software development, you use a lot of tools, and we needed to upgrade and make sure that we're on the latest and greatest version of all the tools that we use, so we can use the AI functions that are included in those things. So that's been a big initiative with the various upgrades to platforms that we use inside of our business, to make sure that
Wow.
we're leveraging everything that we can to make BBCS the work that we do easier, better, faster, more efficient, etc. So that was kind of
Yeah.
phase one to it. Then phase two is really looking at, again, we have years and years, decades of data in that we've had on
Oh.
all of these businesses for a long, long time, and even that predate when we had them as a customer, because right, they converted all their data in. So we have
Mhm.
lots and lots and lots of data. So the next phase of this is, what can we do to leverage that data using AI? and
Yeah.
feed it back to our customers in a meaningful way, and opening up different tools and such that they can use to leverage their data, get access to it, et cetera. So that's kind of phase
So that's
two of
kind of a
this.
classic vertical industry, unique data, long-term relationships, giving them the tools to say, what do we do to improve our processes, improve our business, right? See the data, right? You can almost do consulting with them based on
You very
what
much
you
could.
see and best practices and
You could.
all of that.
And we've done some benchmarking before, but really being able to benchmark across these customers as
Mm.
well, so they understand, hey, so and so's doing this better, and maybe let's look at why. What's interesting about our marketplace, a couple things, is that the blood centers have to work together. And they do.
Oh,
If there's a
interesting.
shooting in Las Vegas that we had to deal with a couple of years ago, well, they needed blood from all over the place, and they
Hmm.
all work very closely together, even though that they compete for hospitals and things like that. They're a very collaborative industry. So, they build friendships and relationships, and these things matter in times of critical need. So,
Mm,
the idea that somebody's going to keep some sort of trade secret and not share it out, that's not it. This is
ah,
mission-based organizations. They're gonna share it out.
I
They're gonna
see.
go into do a symposium and explain what's better about these different things. So if we can arm these people with data that prove the different things that they're doing and doing efficiently, I think that they'll share it. Very much so.
Right. So Red Cross is a big player there. Doesn't sound like they're one of your customers. I'm sure they're the big one there. Do you have a serious competitor out there or two that you have to stay ahead of or compete with in this small market?
There's very few. There's very few
Okay.
people that do what we do. The regulation really keeps people turned off to this. They have to go through that whole process.
Yeah.
We're talking 3 or 4 that operate in the United States, and even some of those aren't even active at this moment. So very few. But what's interesting also is that I've never seen a competitive product. Never laid my eyes on it. My 17 years here, I don't know how my competitor's doing any of this. I can't go demo it. I'm not gonna be able to go buy it and
Yeah.
install
Uh-huh.
it and try it. It's not like a car I can go, do a test drive.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist. Never seen it. I'm just doing what I do and listening to my customers and keep building.
Well, you can do that for a long time. Unless there's some kind of synthetic way to create the blood that we have to get the old fashioned way, this industry is not going to change for a long time.
Yeah.
And, is that how you see it? Is continue to listen to customers evolve as technologies and other things evolve and see where this goes and, you know,
Y
make a bigger, better business?
right. I see these existential threats come up every once in a while. You brought up synthetic blood. There are people that are doing this, organizations that are
Okay.
proving it right now, and I have some fear of that, but at the same time, then I kind of reality hits and says, well, wait a minute, those things, they market it as synthetic blood, but it doesn't do all the different things that blood
Ah,
does yet today. You can't build it at scale. It's not approved in the United States. It's not. Then even if you get all those things done, you got to convince a person that's sitting in a hospital that they should take synthetic blood when real blood's been working great for decades or centuries.
yeah,
And so you
yeah,
have that. So yeah, you go through these kind of freak out moments, but then reality sets in. And the same thing with AI. I mean, at first you start reading everything and you're like, oh my gosh, this thing's going to rewrite me in a weekend after I just spent 70,000 hours of programming. Again, then reality sets. No, this is really complicated stuff. And the only reason I got it done as short amount of time as I did is because I knew what the incumbent was, which was myself, right? I had
yeah.
all this knowledge and right, to try to write that from scratch. Are you kidding me? It would be
Yeah,
challenging. And then not only to say that you could get it through that, but then you got to do this thing called validation, which is what the FDA requires. Well, good luck with that on something that you just built with AI. I think AI is going to augment things, and maybe in the future, but it's a long ways out.
yeah. Yeah, one of the in this long history of software and the migrations, data migrations and customizations for these big core systems, I think, a lot of people are talking about AI making it easier to move from one system to another, to move the data, to, understand, you old systems and document them clearly and double check the new ones. Do you think it'll help you with the migrations,
I
that
do. I don't
of
think
your
it's paying
customers?
off quite yet, but I
Yeah.
do think that there's ways to leverage some of those tools. I really think a big part of the time that it takes to migrate a system is writing down the SOPs, the FDA. That's a very much a fundamental piece of this whole process is you write down what the process is, you train people on the process, you audit against that process, et cetera. Well, these could be hundreds of documents that explain what the entire organization does. Well, those
Right.
all got to get migrated into whatever the new way is. And I have seen where we've been able to use some tools to migrate that, even just ChatGPT, put up one procedure and say, okay, well, now convert it and put this stuff in it, and it can write it pretty quickly. So I really see that helping quite a bit as we go forward.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
That's good. So I'm just imagining this business that moves along every year and has these, whatever, 3 and 4 or 5 year plans, to kind of get through these mountains to climb and, evolutions that you're going through. Does it feel different to be an employee or a leader at BBCS than another software company in Seattle, like a VC funded? I mean, is there what would somebody say who worked for another software company and then worked for you guys,
Yeah.
and say, this is different here?
Yeah, stable. Stability. It really is our benchmark there. We also, I think that one, we don't have churn in customers, but we very much don't have turn in employees very often either.
Ah,
And I think that the people that we attract to this business really get bought into we're helping people. We we
ah,
we we used to have signs up around the office when we before we were a virtual space where it said you affected the lives of 10,000 people today and remind people of that impact that they have. They're making decisions. There's a reason we're regulated because we make decisions on the safety
yeah,
and efficacy of blood. And
yeah.
that's a big deal. Now, that number is quite a bit higher now. So, but I think
Mhm.
people really get bought into the mission of what we're doing. I try to drive that home every time I can talk about it. Make quality personal is one of our key values that we drive home and talk about frequently. And again, the partnership mindset with our customers, you really get bought into what they're doing, and you're just a key component of saving lives.
Well, that's really amazing, and, a lot of it's quite different than a regular vertical industry SaaS, business. It's unique, and I guess it's kind of the practical founder story. Everybody's got a very, very unique, story, if I could even say that here, and, this is a very different approach for a different kind of industry.
Well, and it's so much yes, we've been different, and I'm trying to and over the course of my time here, trying to make us more like the standard playbook, and how
Yeah,
much of the early years of the business were, mom inventing processes, and a lot of them worked to her credit, but they
yeah,
weren't steeped in any sort of, stuff that you'd read out of a business book, and so
yeah.
a large part of what I've been trying to do is to try to bring us up to standards so that we can benchmark across customers. So when we do go
Mm,
talk to a potential employee, that we do sound somewhat familiar to something else they might be doing in a different software development shop. So, I think a lot of that. I went out and got certified in Scrum and Agile a long time ago because I
okay.
just needed some sort of consistent process. I loved it. I brought in the entrepreneurial operating system through Traction, and you started using that.
EOS,
EOS.
the system for running your business, yeah?
It's fantastic, and that's been a huge part of our success. So a lot of it, I'm trying to bring in standards, even though, yes, we are maybe thought of a little bit or looked at a little bit different than other software shops, but we're trying to
Okay.
mature in every way we can. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, you're out there in Seattle. There are a lot of software entrepreneurs running around town. You're not downtown. You're south of downtown. What advice do you have for software founders and entrepreneurs you meet that say you got an up and running software company? Isn't that interesting? I'm thinking about doing this for my industry or something like that. What's the most common advice you have for practical founders out there
Well, this
who are
this should probably come
building
as no
vertical software?
surprise, but the idea of just being patient. Just be patient. Just keep winning each and every day, and things are gonna change. And so that's very much what I tell my staff, and very much what I really try to practice. What I preach is just continue to just move the needle a little bit each and every day, and you start to look back over time, and you've made dramatic changes to your business, to the growth, et cetera. So I think that's a big part of it. And I also think it's really important to get to know who your customers are, be genuine, understand their problems, and really be there with the solution. Or maybe sometimes you don't have the solution, and be honest with them. Those types of things have been really important to me. And I think another thing that's really stuck with me is knowing when to say no. I probably made
Yeah.
more business success by saying no to projects than saying yes to projects because it just
Huh.
keeps my focus. I have been able to something might be shiny and interesting and they would love for me to do this but it takes and distracts from what my key mission is and what I'm trying to do here at the business and my vertical integration. So, being willing to say no to something, even if it looks like a great project or a great opportunity, and stay focused on what you're trying to accomplish and just keep doing that. Over time, it's going to make huge, huge dramatic leaps and big impacts.
Well, that's the practical founder compounding flywheel. Do right by your customers and improve every day and find the leverage inside your business to keep growing and improving. So, well done, Brian. That's an amazing story. Congratulations on your patient success, and we've got you mid conversion. This journey, didn't has been going around for a long time,
Yeah.
and sounds very exciting. Actually, what you're doing over there.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to keep going, and I got a great team around me and a great community that I get to work with. So, check back in a couple years. Let's
Yeah.
check in, and I'll tell you how this conversion's going because there's a lot of work to be done. Yeah,
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for sharing your story on the Practical Founders podcast.
of course, my pleasure. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks for watching this week's interview on the Practical Founders podcast. Be sure to like this episode and subscribe to the Practical Founders YouTube channel to keep up with my weekly in-depth interviews with serious software founders who are building valuable software companies without big funding. You can check out my blog, all the podcast episodes, and information about my Practical Founders CEO peer groups at practicalfounders.com, or message me on LinkedIn if you'd like to connect. See you next week.